Welcome to Meet the Creators, a podcast dedicated to the art of business and the business of art. Meet the creative minds behind marketing campaigns, commercials, business, and art. Tune in to better understand the value of creative minds in marketing and business as we build the bridge between business and creative artists.
Hey everybody, Gene and Mike here, and welcome to another episode of Meet the Creators. I am very excited for our guest that's here today. I actually met him at the beginning of the pandemic playing video games online, and when I caught wind that he was running a record label, I thought he would be perfect for this podcast. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Ryan Magnole.
Cool. Yeah, thanks Eugene for having me on. It's kind of cool to see our worlds kind of collide. Like you said, we met through video games, so it was pretty cool to just kind of come together here and like I don't know, it's worlds colliding. Pretty cool. The music side of things, I do run a record label. Um, Live in Boston, and it's I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Hell yeah, man. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you started this journey? I was reading on your post that this all first started as a blog called Handcastle, and then a couple of years later, you turned that into your record label, EveryDejaVu. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the beginning of that journey?
I was bored in college, and all I would do is basically like just discover music. There was a lot of cool stuff happening in especially hip hop and the blogosphere of things. A lot of cool like rappers and artists just coming out of um, a lot of these websites like Two Dope Boys, Now Right, Hip Hop DX, like all these blogs that were basically launching artists like Kid Cudi, J. Cole, and a few of my favorite artists at the time as well. And I was like, I kind of want to do that, and I kind of just want to see if I could interview like some artists that are like that aren't getting interviewed by these bigger blogs, and yada yada yada. I just like started sending out like emails like, hey, can I interview you? I think it'd be cool. I'll email you like 10 questions and you can email them back. And I would actually get responses because these guys weren't really getting like interviews like that. So time goes by and I have a full-fledged blog. Granted, when I say full-fledged, it's me and a friend who are just writing articles daily, getting like 300 views a day, which we were happy with, but we weren't making money. But it was still cool. I was making cool connections, meeting a lot of cool people, and just yeah, we just kept it rolling for a bit, and then that kind of transformed into some of the people I met. Where like I was like, hey, your next project's coming out. I'll premiere it for you. And they're like, what does that mean? And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, actually. And I'm like, let's make it cool. You want to like put it on cassette and we can sell it for you? And then we'll cut like, we'll give you a cut of the profit once we make some money back. And they're like, okay, sure. Like they didn't have money to spend on to make this cassette, and it didn't cost them anything essentially. And we just did that for like probably like 10 different artists to start off. All we were doing was cassettes, just like, well, it's almost like in addition to putting this album out, we'll put it on cassette for you, sell it for you, ship it for you, and you just do your thing. And yeah, from there, just kind of yada yada yada, just went on cassettes, and then started working with artists. Started realizing, seeing patterns like this works better. Being able to help younger artists like develop, not their sound really. Never, I don't like telling artists what to do in that sense. If they ask questions, I'll give it like my criticism, but mostly just like maybe we release a song this day and then we'll follow it up with a single in like 2 weeks, just release strategy and stuff like that. And that's kind of got us to where we are today.
That's pretty sick, man. I mean, just like anything, you got to put a little bit of effort at the start and you keep nurturing and feeding that. And before you know it, 6, 7 years later, you're running a record label.
Yeah,
Basically.
it's tight. I had a question though, like what are some of like the artists that you like that threw you off, that like you hit up, that responded, or some that really emerged and like came up?
My favorite artist at the time in 2013 is this rapper Blue. Um, and I kind of made the blog. I'm like, my goal is to get an interview with Blue. Like, he released one of my favorite hip hop albums of all time, Below the Heavens, and I was like, man, to just pick, get in this guy's brain, it'd be awesome. So, I just wrote 12, 14 questions out of Fanboy essentially, which just want to know And he hit me back like within like an hour. He's like, "Yeah, here's the answers." And I'm like, "Oh, like it's
What?
that easy." And he
Shit.
literally just
It was that
dropped it
easy.
on, and I'm like, "Yeah." And then it was just a simple. Looking back, like my interviewing experience definitely got better over time. But it was simple questions, and actually one of the questions I asked was about his next album, and because of that question, a bunch of other hip hop blogs picked up my interview as like a Blue says his next album is his best album to date, like one of those like very like clickbaity type headline type of things. But it all said like via interview with EveryDejaVu, Blue said blah 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 blah, and I think within like 2 days that brought like 1,300 views from a blog that was making like 20 views a day. And I was like freaking out. Like I think that was probably the coolest thing ever. And from there, I just kind of had to keep it rolling because that was within the first couple months. Um, and yeah, kind of rode that high for quite a bit. Um, I will say the other craziest interview story I can think of is Anderson .Paak.
Okay.
But the funny part about that is I was actually put in contact with his manager to set up the interview, and I set it up, and I kind of fumbled it. He wasn't big at all, and I kind of was sketched out with all of it to start with, just the way I never spoke to Anderson .Paak. I had just spoken to his manager, and then they said, "Okay, we'll send you an invite to the portal," kind of what you guys just did. But this was like 6 years ago, so I was like, "Huh, that's weird." But all right, I'll do it. And I don't know what happened. I totally forgot about it, and I checked the day of it, and I thought it was a different day, and I looked back, and I'm like, it wasn't. But no one ever reached out to me either. So nobody, but kind of fumbled that. I will say at the time I wasn't too down about it. He was pretty small, and I thought I could just get another interview later. And I tried, I couldn't, and then he blew up. And yeah, definitely can't now. So
Yeah, man, you live to interview another day.
basically,
I wanted to go back a little bit. You said, one of your favorite artists at the time was Blue. Could you give us a rundown of some of your favorite musicians and biggest influences in your life?
yeah. I mean, I will say when it comes to like, so I started playing guitar when I was like 14, and I think that was the reason I got into music. I mostly got into guitar because I really like Guitar Hero. Um, like I played Guitar Hero just for fun, and then I started liking the songs a lot. That made me then want to get a guitar, and I got a guitar, yada yada. But I will say one of my favorite musicians ever since I started playing guitar, and actually because of Guitar Hero, was Buckethead. Weird dude. He
Oh yeah, I know
wears
Buckethead.
yeah, he wears
The
this
KFC.
yeah, he wears a KFC hat, like a KFC bucket as a hat,
What?
this like white hockey mask, and everything he does is just so weird. Yellow trench coat, like all his music was spanned so many different genres. It's very genre bending. Um, some stuff was like very soothing. Some stuff was like heavy metal. Some stuff was just like straight noise. Like I don't know what the hell's going on in my ears, but I kind of respect the vision here, you know. And I think that kind of taught me to expand my like horizon a bit when it comes to music. Well, first of all, I think that was probably the first instrumental music I got into. But second of all, I think it just kind of helped me build a good palette for like just enjoying different artists. I think listening to him made me realize like I love artists that actually take risks. I love artists that make weird music. And it kind of I think just rolled over to a lot of the way I see a lot of art in general. I'm trying to think more like be authentic, be yourself, put yourself in the music, let it ride. And I think I probably have other people to credit too, but Buckethead, like definitely when it comes to music, is a top notch influence when it comes to that type of stuff.
You were mentioning about you said KFC hat. I'm like, what? Yellow trench coat? What? Okay. He's just doing what he's doing, right? And you could come along for the ride or you don't have to. You were talking about how when you first started marketing some of your artists, you were going by cassettes. did you really have any like strategy going into any of this, or were you kind of just freestyling it on the go? And now, what you mentioned, Buckethead, and kind of expanding your palette for your taste in music, do you feel like you have to have different rollouts and marketing strategies for different types of genres for your artists, or do you have something that kind of fits all in terms of your marketing strategy?
I've definitely I used to wing it so much at the beginning. I'm just like, I'll be in charge of like manufacturing these 50 cassettes for you, these 100 cassettes, 200, whatever. And then I just hope you're going to have fans who want to pick these up. You know, like I'm going to do my part, share them on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. But I mean, from my end, I couldn't really guarantee much. But then I started learning, like, I started seeing like what maybe other labels were doing, what artists were doing. And over time, I started to understand, yeah, what does work a little better. I think what's most important has been me actually listening to a lot of the artists I work with. Um, I don't want to say like some are different than others, and some are really hands on when it comes to what they see as a release strategy. Um, and I think it's just been helpful to see just different perspectives because some artists want their cassette like ready as a pre-order. They want to see like pictures like as soon as they're like their album's announced, they want their cassette up. And some of them though have wanted to they release the digital album and then we'll hit them with a physical copy like 6 months later because they want to see, is it worth it? We want to spend this money to actually try and sell this to the fans? And I think that's made me kind of see the like advantages of both. And I don't think there's one size fits all for sure. I think it really depends on what does a fan base look like, what genre of music kind of takes it its toll, because I think more so like what is the sound and what does it feel like. I think some albums deserve like a CD release, and maybe it comes with like a booklet that explains the album, but maybe it's something that feels like it would fit perfectly in like an old car, and you want to get a cassette for it, and maybe you focus more on like a little trinket that comes with this cassette instead, like a pin, or we did a guitar pick once. So little things like that can vary per genre, but I think the general approach is really just on. It's going to come down to like what assets come with the albums. For example, some artists may have 2 music videos they want to do, and they may have 3 singles before that. And to me, when I hear that, I can already see like a year of like album rollout where it's like, okay, we're going to plan this single like 2 months in advance. Single's going to come. Another single's going to come like a month later, and the album a month later after that. And then maybe one of those came with a music video, but then we saved the other music video for 2 months after. So, you know, some stuff like that could help tell me when we want to do the physical release. Do we feel like the physical will be another like point on a timeline to actually continue the album rollout? Maybe they have remixes, and maybe the remixes come, and that's when we announce a physical, and maybe the physical's a deluxe version. You know, there's so many little different things. It's really tough to say like specifically how an album's gonna look like. Some people like to just do the biggest splash possible with their release. Some people like to just really expand it, and I think it. To me, I just talk to the artist about it, and it's what they want. I don't ever think that there's one right way to do it.
Is that the best way for artists to make money and revenue is through like merchandise and physical copies, not through streaming, right?
No. Well, that's a pretty loaded question, I think, because I think um, I'll take 2 examples. Let's say you make shirts. You make a run of 50 shirts. It's going to run you like $500 at least. And to make that $500 back, you're going to have to sell, depending on your price, let's say 20 of those shirts. It's not bad overall of investment, but then you have to get to your 21st shirt before you make $10. And that's already a lot of money invested. It's a lot of work you probably put into a design. Did you pay someone for the design? How much hours did you put into shipping things? What about the supplies for shipping? You know, all these things sort of add up. Versus if you if you're already planning on touring or doing shows, it's first of all hard to get shows, but let's take that out of context. If you do nail a show, could make like $50 in a night, which to be honest kind of sucks. Um, but a lot of payment for artists sucks in general because it's just everyone's trying to make money off of each other, and unfortunately, artists do get the like the bad end of the stick on a lot of things. Um, so I do think shows could be beneficial in that way, where maybe it doesn't cost you as much to figure it out, but there's also hidden costs in everything. Maybe you had to pay your band. Maybe you're splitting it with a band. Maybe you don't have a band and it is the best option you have. But touring does mean you can sell merch as well at your shows. So a lot of these things go hand in hand. It really comes down to how your fan base is. Some fan bases support like digital copies very well. They're willing to spend $10 on a digital album, whereas some fan bases only are going to buy cassettes from you, or they're only going to buy like CDs from you. To me, the craziest thing I've learned is how different physical copies perform against each other. It's never like I see cassettes selling as well as CDs or CDs selling as well as cassettes. Some fan bases are just different. I think depending on what type of music you're making, depending on like the demographic of your fan base, it can vary, and there's really no like formula for it. For the longest time, I always heard CDs are super popular in Japan. I just don't think like the cassette like novelty of cassettes ever hit them like it has here recently, and I think CDs are still more popular than vinyl there.
Yeah, what about vinyl? Are you touching that too? Are you getting into pressing vinyl too for these artists?
I did a vinyl for a blue release that we did in 2016. And it's so hard. It's so much work, and it takes so long, and now even longer than ever. At the at the moment it's demand, and there's a limitation on how many vinyl plants there are in the country. Maybe even outside the country. I actually don't. Last time I looked this up, and I've kind of just like repeated this because I see it online. People commented online too. Is like in the country there's a limitation of vinyl factories, and even the major labels are sharing this like same queue with you. So if Adele's getting a bunch of if she needs to get her vinyl out in a month, stop the presses literally, get Adele's copy to the front. We need to print like 10,000 copies, and there's only so much these old machines can actually print or press, and that backs up all the indie labels. So from what I heard, around the end of last year, waits were up to like 12 to 14 months to actually get your vinyl out, which for a lot of bands that kind of like ruins the rollout timeline for you if you're expecting to have your vinyl with the release, and it's expensive. So you can't really like get away with like a minimum of 50. Mostly people do like at least, I would say 200, but really 500 is like when you feel like the margins start to be worth it. So you kind of have to feel like you can sell at least, I would say 100 records. Yeah, well, it's like 100 records would maybe make you close to, I don't want to say your money back, but like make you feel good about spending the money you did on 500 records. Yeah, it's tough. I will say vinyl makes you great money if you can sell, and because once you do break even, the number's so high that it's the investment's worth it. I guess same goes for really any little bit. It's just the numbers are so much smaller for cassettes and CDs.
You mentioned earlier that on one of your marketing rollouts, you gave out a pick. Do you have a guitar pick? Do you have any particular marketing rollout that's one of your favorites that you really like that kind of stood out from all of your other artists?
Yeah. Yeah, I do think honestly my favorite marketing like ideas for music are usually the ones that just gets fans involved, even at a small level. Um, I've wanted to figure out a way. Yeah, so I haven't done this yet, but I've really wanted to figure out a way to get like some sort of like I want to get Twitch involved with marketing like rollouts. And I think Instagram Live has kind of like been used a lot for artists. In kind of like, hey, we're having like a live release party with our band. Come, yeah, it's like come tune into our Instagram Live. But I will say Twitch is so much more powerful. Granted, you could do a lot of cool stuff on Instagram Live. But I do think the fact that like the way it presents itself is kind of small, and it's a bit more constrained, especially if you don't know how to like stream to it, which I actually don't have no idea. I just saw someone like talk about it the other day on TikTok, and I was like, I didn't know that was possible. But like, I mean, Eugene, I know you know Twitch well. Like, it's like there's just so many things you can do, and there's so many cool, like, especially using scenes and stuff like that. Like, there's no reason why you can't get like even like a 2-camera setup and actually have like a little like mini concert, but actually have it like maybe interactive with fans, like take it to the next level. Like, what can't you do at a concert that you could actually do because you have a computer set up in front of you? Something I wanted to do, kind of like when everybody was doing the whole Instagram Live thing, and COVID was like the first summer of COVID, was I wanted to get a bunch of artists to like record live performances for me, and set up like a Discord call or a Zoom call, and I would play these performances like on my computer, stream them, but then have the artist on the video call like in the corner. So like it's almost like the fans are watching the band with the band, and then that allows the band to actually interact with the fans while the concert's going on.
Twitch has been the place to be. I mean, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I was seeing so many DJs and artists live streaming their performances and their music. And Twitch has actually created a relatively large environment for music now. And so you are seeing more artists going on there. I mean, you even see certain producers making music there and having their, fans watching. So it's definitely something to think about. And I mean, that sounds like an amazing idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think it's not for everybody, of course. So I think that's kind of been my like my crutch so far, of like trying to like actually push for it. Especially if it's going to be more than like a one-off thing, right? Like you can't really like I would love to tell all my artists, hey, just get on Twitch, play a video game and talk to your fans for the night or something. I think that it's connecting with fans can happen in so many different ways, and I think something like Twitch, or I mean whatever, maybe even YouTube Live, stuff like that, is also powerful to actually like connect with your fans. And yeah, people are doing it on a daily basis. I follow this local rapper. Their name is Pink Navel, and they've been putting on Twitch streams since I could remember. And they just I joined and streamed the other day, but they were just playing Pokemon, the new Pokemon Arceus, and like 30 people watching and just hanging out, chatting. And I recognized all these names from like they're like local bands or something. Like they made their own Twitch accounts, and they're just there like chilling and watching, their favorite local artist play Pokemon Arceus. And it's like doesn't have to be like you playing music all the time. Granted, I like a lot of music Twitch people who are like making beats or just DJing on Twitch. I think that's really cool, but don't even have to go that far. I think there's a lot of cool ways to just open yourself up, open who you are as an artist to your fan base.
That's dope. What does EveryDejaVu have planned for 2022?
Good question. I think I would like to know as well. I think that
What are the goals, man?
So there's a couple things lined up. I will say 2022 is pretty open right now in terms of like I can't give anybody a date on what's coming, but I do know things are coming. And what I can say for now is we have this cool album coming from another local artist. They're based here in Boston. artist name is Lava Girl with a G instead of an I in the girl. They make like, it's really tough to pinpoint what the music is. It's almost like if you mixed like trap drums with like electronic production and like pop R&B singing. That's Lava Girl. And it almost, I don't even know how, like the way I think about it is like you're in like this like, their music's almost like you're trapped in this like forest that's in a video game, but it's like dark at night. I don't know. I always find it tough to describe their music, but that's coming sometime probably. Yeah, probably this spring. They were actually nominated for Boston Music Award for Best Electronic Artist. So I know they have like good recognition around the scene here. And I'm excited that I get to work with them. We're just finishing up the album. Then we got to do all like the fun stuff like photo shoots and kind of like wrapping up the album. What are the singles? Are we going to get a music video? What does the physicals look like? Is it a cassette, a CD? Can we figure out a tour, press, all that stuff? So I want to say that's our next, like, our current, I guess, big project. But we have a couple other things. I think a EP from a Seattle producer named Fate is around the corner. No date solidified for that either. Talking with a few other artists as well. Might have a couple like remixes from a project we released at the end of last year. And there's always just stuff. Like, I keep a lot of close relationships with the artists I've worked with in the past. And a lot of the deals I do are just like album deals. So I'm never like, I need 5 albums from you. And like, they need to be within the year. All I do is 1 album deal. So it's like, if they want to release their next album with me, that's awesome. Let's figure it out. But it kind of makes me not have the scope of like what may be next. But it's usually like, I know there may be something else and I know we'll probably work on it. So there's that. And I think besides the music, actually, something cool we've been working on is bringing the blog back. We actually revamped our website recently it now has artist pages and album pages. So if you were to go to our website, you could see like, here's all of our artists. You click into, let's say, Dolly Ave. She was one of our artists who released her debut. It was like a EP in May of last year. If you click on her, you can read her whole biography. You can click to all of her social links. You could scroll down and then you could see her projects. If you click on the EP we released called Sleep, you can see the press release for Sleep, everything you need to know about that EP, all the links to listen to it, the music videos that accompanied it. And because we did that, I thought, why don't we just keep going on the website and let's bring back the blog. And we're bringing on a few freelance writers to actually just write about any music. Like, it doesn't have to be EveryDejaVu. It's just, let's write about stuff that's cool, stuff that's not really getting written about. And let's get it out there. And hopefully we create like this cool little loop, this little ecosystem. Like, people get to learn a little bit more about EveryDejaVu through our music taste, as well as people who are coming in that, like those artists, can check out EveryDejaVu artists as well. And I think that's 2022 for now, at least as much as I can think.
So, for any aspiring record label CEOs, what kind of words of wisdom or advice would you have for them?
It's funny. Peanut Butter Wolf is the founder of Stone's Throw Records, and I think his advice would be, don't start a record label. But I am 100% against that. I think there needs to be more record labels, but by good people, by people who just want to give like a helping hand to an artist, who actually want to listen to an artist, who don't want to necessarily make money off of artists. Like, obviously, like, you want to make money off of the work you do, the money you spend, but honestly, a record label should never be making more money than an artist. So I think the advice I would give is listen to the artist, be fair to the artist, help out the artist in their interest as much as possible, and hope to God that, you'll get your dues will be paid, but just know that it's going to be tough. And I would say limit yourself to what you actually should be doing, because it's a lot of work. And like, I think a lot of labels are doing cool stuff, like they're just like specializing in making cassettes. Maybe they're specializing in like just like one single thing. And that's cool, because I think artists, it's tough to be an artist nowadays. Like, you don't have a lot of like resources on your side. And if you're somebody who like wants to start a record label, and maybe all you want to do is like throw $300-$400 at an artist and make their cassette for them and do that work, that may be what they need from their fan base, to just give them that extra step, like something that they couldn't afford to do on their own, or something they didn't have the time for, because time's money, time's a resource, all that stuff. It's kind of tough to just, as an artist, wear all those hats to be your own business type of thing. So I think just kind of look at it that way and try to help out an artist. It's fulfilling. It's just know that like it's gonna be tough, but that's the music business. It's you have to do it out of love to really get anywhere.
Do it for the love of the game versus trying
Yeah,
to find
exactly.
the money.
Speaking of profit, I think Mike wanted to ask you a question about a particular artist that recently did something.
Oh, yeah. I think you might know what I'm talking about, but what do you think about Kanye West making his decision for his next album to be on the little stem player versus pulling it from, Apple and Spotify and all that?
Oh yeah, well, we didn't really cover the streaming thing earlier too much.
Yeah, we could talk about it
So
though.
maybe this is good. Let's lead off with what streaming does for artists first, and then we'll go into Mr. West over here.
Oh yeah, Gene, you want to tee that one up? Mr. West.
Mr. West. So I think definitely that is going to be a great segue into what's going through Mr. West's head. But I do think it's interesting. The issue with streaming is it was never supposed to be the primary way artists made money. It was like this invention for fans to have more accessibility to an artist's music. And I don't think it was ever entirely supposed to replace like people buying albums. It was supposed to just like combat people like pirating music. Like, hey, if I can spend a monthly membership, I don't have to illegally download your music now. And it's kind of got out of hand, honestly, because just big companies being big companies and making like Spotify pays its, all the leadership and even its employees so much money, and the artists don't get anything. I mean, they paid Joe Rogan or whatever like so many millions of dollars, and they even like donated so much money just off of the bullshit that he's caused, like to just through like Spotify and whatever. And he like, it's like that's money that just could go to artists, and they're paying like 0.00004 per stream. And it's just crazy that like they could like increase that like even a tenth of a cent, and it would just change so many artists' lives, and they just don't budge. But I will say, with all that being said, for a couple of my artists, it actually the cents and the fraction of cents do add up, and they do actually make some decent money. And I don't know what the solution is overall, because they should be making more money, but it's money that wouldn't be there if it wasn't for streaming. But it's tough to get there. Like, you're relying on these platforms to like put you on playlists and getting your numbers up. And you're hoping that maybe your album's going to have like 100,000 streams. So maybe you can then each give your band members like $200. And it's just crazy to think like, oh, that's really what it is. But it's almost just like, it's nice that when like, because when you sell a digital album, let's say you'll make like $8 just for that. It's nice to see that it was $8, because that would have been like 1,000 something streams or something. I forget the math now, but that's 5 digits in streams, where that feels good. But what doesn't feel good is the $8 is $8 that day, and you're never going to see money from that again. With streaming, for the most part, I've seen a lot of my artists actually have like consistent like this is what they're making monthly. Whether it's $30 a month, whether it's like $2,000 a month, they make this constant revenue from their fans listening. And I think the scummy part is it just could be so much higher, and it should be, because the companies are making that much more money. I will say it's pretty cool though that it's getting talked about more, and there's actually like other companies coming out of this that are trying to be more fair. I think SoundCloud does this cool thing where they pay out based on how much people are listening to you. So I don't know the exact numbers, but it's like if Betty pays $10 a month in her SoundCloud membership, if she listens to Eugene here for the entire month only, those $10 are going to Eugene. So it's actually cool to see like the money breakdown of that like that. SoundCloud's still taking the cut. Probably not. Yeah, it's probably not still enough, but it's moving things in the right direction. There's a lot of stuff happening as well in the Web3 space that I don't understand. It goes over my head, but there's a lot of people like fighting that, like basically music ownership with new platforms that are kind of backing like this ownership of, I saw this one website basically, you own not like own, but if you listen to a song, I think 10 times, it charges you like $1, and that dollar goes to the artist, and then now you technically like downloaded the song. Like if you were to like buy it, like it's replacing like if you were to buy it on iTunes for $1. Instead, you can now stream this for like 10 times, and your credits are going towards that. And now that is being paying the artist through that like credit form. And like I said, a lot of it goes over my head, but I think these sorts of like new platforms that are kind of fighting streaming in that way are going to be really powerful, because it's either going to banish streaming entirely or force more money to the artists. And I think that's important. And I think while streaming does bring in money for a lot of artists, it's once again doing what it's always done in the music industry, is just the top artists are making the money, the bottom ones are starving. And it's definitely a very like the top 1% is making more money than everybody basically. So yeah, on that note, Kanye West, he putting his thing on the STEM thing that he's releasing or whatever for $200. Unfortunately, it's just unrealistic, and everyone's just gonna pirate his album. He'll sell, I'm sure, a lot of that thing, and he'll probably make money. In terms of strategy, the thing is with Kanye, everything he does is for like a headline, and I think it's working because he announced this, and now there's gonna be headlines about it. I think he did it with Life of Pablo too, where he's like, you can only get it if you come to my live show or something, or the theater show he put on. You have to buy like tickets to go to the movies to see like his album roll out. I don't really remember, but apparently so many people pirated that album. So people are just going to send around links. People are going to listen to however they want, and eventually it'll hit streaming platforms, I'm sure, because it's probably the only way to make money off of music for an artist like him, unless he goes touring and whatnot. But like he is leaving a lot of money off the table if he doesn't put on streaming, because he doesn't need fan base to go and like find his music. Like he uploads it and he's going to get millions of streams and make a ton of money anyway. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. He's an interesting guy right now, and I think I don't know if I agree with the $200 thing. I will say I agree with him being anti-streaming platforms and actually kind of making a stance, but I don't think it's in like the best interest. Like I don't think he's thinking about little artists, or I don't think he's thinking. I think he's just doing it to promote his album, from how I see it.
Yeah, the music industry
is
going to be interesting. You did talk about Web3, and it reminded me of Snoop Dogg. He just acquired back Death Row, and he mentioned that was going to be an NFT based record label. So that's also a little bit over my head, but it is going to be interesting in the next couple of years how artists and the fan base take ownership back into their own hands, and however they may roll that out. But it should be interesting
Yeah.
because, like you mentioned, it's hard. It's the new version of the internet where I guess the best way you can explain it, the first version of the web was basically just putting all the information on the internet, just having information there. Web 2 was the interaction of people, like um, chat, and I think kind of like that's kind of the base of it. And Web3 now is kind of the evolution of like finance and how you can transfer money via the internet and the usage of it. Again, over my head, that's a very um, basic generalization of it, but Web3 now is kind of putting the power of money into their own hands. There's platforms that are created where artists could put their music on. People who buy that music from there can have royalties from that music they buy, and so on and so on. So um, artists are realizing that they do, if they have the following, they can take the power into their own hands and potentially make more money instead of giving that back to the record label. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. Ryan, how can people find you or get a hold of you if they want to follow Every Deja Vu or yourself?
Yeah, so every deja vu you can find it on, I would say most actively probably on Twitter and Instagram at EveryDejaVu. Thankfully, we got those names a while ago, and I didn't have to make some weird long name. So we are at EveryDejaVu, which is like just every and then deja vu as one word. Um, and you can find me as well, mostly Twitter, mostly Instagram. Want to is WONTU. Um, and yeah, probably, and then everydejavu.com probably links to all that as well. And we try to make it our best, at least to make it easy to navigate and find everything you need to know about Every Deja Vu.
Um, so I did take some time to listen to some of the artists, actually, because I'm doing this thing with some friends that I met on the internet. We're doing album of the day, where we're trying to listen to a different album every day, which has really been expanding my knowledge and genre. And then they'll be like, "What, Mike? You never listened to the Nirvana album?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, then they'll give you like 10 other albums from that time or something. So it's been really refreshing. But so I did listen to a few of the albums on there. And of course, is it pronounced Japan? Is it just straight up Japan?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he's the biggest one, right? Would you say?
yeah,
Yeah. So
definitely.
those beats are dope. I didn't know about that, so I like that. But my favorite artist on there, if I don't know if you'd be able to guess, but actually is Barboletta. That's the one for me. That one hits pretty well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome, especially because I really think everything came together for me when I was working with Borboleta. They're based out of Rhode Island, and like just found Borboletta's music on SoundCloud, reached out, and the first time I ever went to like a music studio was at Borboleta. We like went to actual studio, had a guitarist with us, made music from scratch, recorded it, high quality, and like such a cool moment, especially because like I was actually like involved in that, like the music side of it, as well as like planning everything, helping them book shows. I mean, it's just 2 shows, but still like booking the shows, doing like all the pitching ourselves, hiring like radio press people, and like we got Barboletta played on like BBC radio, and just like all these little things that were like all wins. That was like just us, you know. It was like we did everything between us. It wasn't like because they didn't have any music out really before I came along. Did have some stuff on SoundCloud. I don't want to take like all the credit for their fans or anything, but it was just like cool to like start almost from scratch and just work closely with them on like every step along the way. It was a learning experience for me, learning experience for them, and we're still working together. Hope to have new music out soon. And yeah, I'm actually really happy to hear that That
No,
was your
they're dope.
favorite artist.
That's the one. The weirdest one I didn't get to listen to too much is Elbow so far.
Yeah, Elbows. Honestly, I love his music because it's a bit weird. It's a bit like it's almost like spooky, but it's like jazzy, funky, some like rock
Spooky
elements, some
jazz.
hip hop elements. It's just got a little bit of everything. It's I don't know. It's got really just cool vibes. And I actually know him because he followed EveryDejaVu because we released a Blue project, and he's a big fan of Blue, and that's how we bonded a long time ago. And he just kind of blew me away when he sent me that album. It was done when he sent it to me, and I was just like, wow, dude, like, do you want me to release this, or are you just like sharing this with me because this is sick? So shout out to all those, yeah, really cool stuff.
That's dope, man. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that you're doing some good stuff, and I took some time to listen to the artists, and that's my
Appreciate
number
that.
one so far, and I'll definitely be like keeping up and supporting too. I just been into vinyl like hard. That's why I wanted to ask you about that. But now I got to get a cassette player because I got to support because I got to get that in my little audiophile system.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think wish I could do more vinyl. It's just tough, man.
That shit's hard. I feel it. But the resurgence is out of this world, man. I'm just like on Reddit, and people like even like the independent artists, they'll be like, "Hey, this person's great," and then that's how they'll sell out their records is through like Reddit subreddits and that way. So yeah, community is the most important way with small artists.
Yeah, man. I think it's kind of a bummer sometimes when someone can only do like 200 copies, and I miss one, and I check online like months later and sell it online for like $100, and I'm like, I really missed out. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool.
Dope, man. That's all I had to ask, but I'll definitely keep in touch and support for sure. Like I'll tell my local record shop about you guys too, and just keep in touch with Gene. So thanks for this interview.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Gene. I appreciate you having me and talking to me and listening to me for an hour about EveryDejaVu. Appreciate it.
Ryan, thank you, man. Really appreciate you coming on to the Meet the Creators podcast. And for everybody else, that's it for this episode. And so we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Meet the Creators. I hope you found value in today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and please share with a friend.